Hey, welcome to the 6th episode of Sleeping Man on the Yagi Box podcast. Today we will be discussing the Kyle Rittenhouse phenomenon, I would say, as that had gone wild with a lot of different opinions. We will be doing that with Jude Goldman, who is in his own way, he's going off the grid just due to where the world is at the moment. We will be talking to him and myself, discussing a very controversial and dividing subject, Kyle Rittenhouse. So anyway, we want to talk about this Kyle Rittenhouse. I can't even tell you how upset people get when certain people get upset when you bring this kid's name up. I'm in shock. And part of it is, and I'm sure this is true with you, where were you raised? Right up here, right in Saratoga. No?
Yeah, I was actually born in Woodstock, but there was no hospital, I popped out in Kingston, New York. But I'm a Woodstock. I'm a product of the hippie generation.
Oh, you are, yeah. Yep. That's always been a hit. Well, the thing is recently I had some friends that I was seeing, and we were talking. And of course it got into politics, and I brought up Kyle Rittenhouse, and you'd swear like, what are you talking about Lucifer for? It was just like they're that pissed off about it. And I guess I don't understand it too much. Here they are, they're coming to get me. But here's the thing. Before we even talk about him, I think we need to talk about a guy named Jacob Blake. Do you remember who that guy is?
I don't. Enlighten me.
Okay, so Jacob Blake was, on August 2020, the police, he was involved in a police shooting. He was a black guy. You'd remember probably if I told you. He went to his truck. There was a domestic violence call. He goes to his truck.
Okay.
And the cops are like trying to grab him. He goes down to his car, opens up his door, goes into his car, and pulls out a fucking knife. And he gets shot, I think, 7 times, but survived. I know what that says about the cops shooting him, because usually they're pretty good at killing you. So he survives.
I'm currently watching the case where the female officer goes to tase the guy and pulls it and shoots him instead. So.
Oh, the wrong gun.
Yeah,
she pulled out the wrong gun.
I
don't know what.
They're picking the jury now. It hasn't gotten to the case yet, but that should be.
Can you imagine being a cop today?
No, and she was like a cop for 15 years,
Yeah. So this Jacob Blake, I can remember seeing him, I believe, in his hospital bed, saying, "Hey, no, don't riot." I think he manned up and said, "I was wrong. What I did, got shot 7 times." He's a 29-year-old guy. And that's what started the whole thing in Wisconsin. Okay. That's what started the riots. That's what caused a bunch of criminals to burn down. It was this ongoing, perpetuated violence that was occurring in our country at the time. And at this age, our age, and the experience we have and everything we've been through, I don't think we look at it the same. In other words, I'm not willing to put a gun on and go kill anybody because I know how shitty, how rigged, how fucked up the world is. So I'm not interested, really, because you don't know. You're like, I don't know who's right or wrong. But I get this kid, Rittenhouse, he came from a similar, we'd hunt, we'd fish. I came from that kind of background. USA, a lot of guys went in the military. My brother went in the military. A lot of my friends went in the military. After 9/11, a bunch of my friends went in the military. They left their careers and went in the military.
Same, yeah.
I know a lot of people who did that. I don't really see a difference between what this kid did and doing that, But the thing is, this is what I believe anyway.
Signing up for the military, you're saying?
Yeah, I think he saw people's businesses being burned down. 40 buildings were burned down, and I think it was over $500 million worth of damage was done in the city at that point. And here's something else that's interesting that you're not going to hear in the news. I had listened to some of the guys that were down there with videos recording everything that was going on, podcasters, and just conspiracy theory guys and all these crazy people. They're not crazy, but you know what I mean.
We're all crazy.
We're all little nuts, right? Yeah. But one of the things that came out was they said that the cops, because they were told to stand down, so they were pretty helpless at this point. There was a boatload of people running around with guns, pistols, everything. It was like the Wild Wild West. And
that's
are you
where,
being?
That's what freaks me out. So
really,
on this podcast, I may give you a little resistance, but I think this will be great for the listeners and great for you. We can challenge convention,
like therapeutic for me.
It'll be therapeutic for the. It'll be therapeutic for the both of us. Now, mind you, I'm living in a state now that's open carry, and I love it. And I'm going to get a pistol. No permit. The only place I can't go is a public building or a bar.
Oh, the bar thing sucks. You should be able to go into a bar looped.
Exactly.
With armament.
I think that's my problem.
Crazy rules.
So I mean, we haven't gotten deep into the thing.
Oh, go. No, we like the organicness of all
are you
of
ready
this.
to jump in?
Let's go for it.
Yeah, remove all the political brouhaha aside for 1 second. Can we do that?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Right.
Here we go.
Okay.
Go on.
So
dissipated.
So you and I are going to the World Cup.
Okay.
Have you ever seen some of these Europeans at one of these fucking soccer matches?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen
the hooligans and
have you seen what happens when the team doesn't win?
Yeah, violence. Beer bottles being thrown.
Bullshit,
drunkenness.
Right? They're burning cars. What are they doing? They're fucking shit up. People die sometimes. They get trampled. Right? I mean,
soccer's no bullshit over there, right? It's serious.
Right, and it's not even. Maybe it is political, and I don't even know about it. Like with the teams and everything, I don't even know. But my point is,
I don't know.
Do you want to give those motherfuckers guns now? Like, do you want to go to a public soccer match or whatever it is? I'm using it as an example. I'm saying in the U.S. I'm saying wherever you live. I'm saying, do we want to go to a public gathering armed and with other people armed? Do we want to live in a city or state or country where I go to a parade or I go to a fucking county fair? You tell me.
So you get the pork chop on a stick and get shot in the head.
Yeah, like the
right at the county fair.
Yeah.
But there's only there's only one thing I'll say about that, though. And here's what I'm going to say. Well, there's a lot I could say. I don't know it's the same comparison. A bunch of hooligans are all drunk, and plus nobody's allowed to have guns in Europe anyway. I mean, we were, because of how we evolved as a country, especially the Wild West and all the danger and peril that occurred during that period in our time, the gun, the whole gun phenomenon that we have here was interesting. So first of all, you're talking about this. Is it the Second Amendment that you're?
Yeah, I'm talking about. And I'm pro Second Amendment. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I am actually going to get a pistol. I am pro Second Amendment.
Why am I having this argument with you?
Yeah, well, it's not an argument. My problem is I don't want. It's just like the cannabis we were talking about. Like, I'm pro cannabis, but I also don't want to go to the park. I don't want my airline pilot sparking up a joint while I'm trying to get to a destination, or my EMT driver. I mean, I think there has to be some legislation in place, and I don't want to attend public events where I don't want a 17-year-old making any decision for me other than like what kind of ice cream cone I'm going to get. And even that I want to make on my own. So that's my point.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that you get into a lot of things there, but the reality is I don't think a kid should be able to drive a car till he's 25. I don't think that they should be able to. Here's the problem with that, though. You want to know what the problem is? We wouldn't have a military. They want,
right.
Yeah, they don't know enough, right? I didn't know enough. I think of some of the things I did, Darwinian evolution, trying to survive from the age of 13, hormonal stress to 25. You remember all the shit you were doing?
We're still not stuck in adult adolescence, you and I?
No, I think we're probably stuck in adult adolescence, but the people who are responsible, I don't think the whole thing in your frontal lobe there, it doesn't evolve until you're 25 years old. So there's a lot of things I think we do, but we know we have to have a military, and we need kids who don't realize that they're not playing a video game. And right. when you get back to this whole thing, it really is about defending. So these guys get it. I don't want to get into all how he got the gun he didn't cross state lines. All that was bullshit. But he has a gun and he's down there. For the most part, was he a trained EMT? He had some training in EMT. He was actually down there helping people.
Fire department.
Yeah,
I know. And I agree with you. He got demonized in the press. I do agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, the president of the United States came out and said he was a white supremacist. I mean, why does the president need to chime in on that at all? I got huge problems with that. But here's the problem. So let's just walk through it. So you are walking into a war zone. I don't know that anyone knew the magnitude of what was going on there. We'll probably get some video and attach it to this. We'll attach it to this just to see what was going on. But you're literally walking into Beirut or Iraq, or Afghanistan. You're walking into a war zone. I don't know that we understand that because it's not something we live with on a daily basis.
I understand. I was in Israel. I was just telling somebody in Israel, you will see an 18-year-old standing in the corner with a machine gun.
Yes. Yeah. And and you want to know something? I was in London the day after 9/11, or not the day after, a few months after 9/11. And I never saw so much automatic weaponry in my life. And you want to know something? They shook down 3 Arab guys in back of me, just took them aside, threw a blanket on the floor, dumped out all their shit. 5 guys with machine guns standing around. I said to the guy, I said, man, they can't do that in the United States. And he says, that's why it happened in the United States. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, in an English accent, which I can't do, even though I am English. But so I don't know that we as a country have been subjected to some of the violence. When I was just as an example, when I was in London, there were places I couldn't walk because I looked Jewish. I looked American. I had everything going against me. My accent, when I talked, I had an American accent. They said you're too American.
Your dashingly handsome looks didn't help you get into any place you wanted?
Well, we're doing our first video shoot, so everybody's going to discover that. But no, but it was such a crazy thing. They had to be conscious of things we don't have to be conscious of. And I don't know, maybe we do. I'm so isolated these days. I don't know. Maybe we do have to be conscious of it. I don't know. But I'm always concerned when I walk into any crowd. I'm like the most paranoid person there because you're just...
Oh, my God, me too.
You're just expecting something to go wrong. There's guys shooting from a hotel room in Vegas. Think about all the things that have happened. Do I think gun control we're so legislated on gun control. We've got to enforce some of those things. But here's the thing. Certain politicians don't like the Second Amendment because you want to know what they try and convince us that the Second Amendment was for hunting deer and squirrels and rabbits. And guess what? The Second Amendment has nothing to do with that. It's about hunting down tyrannical governments and the politicians that run those. It gives us the ability to defend against that. So when we go back to defend ourselves against evil, violence, which is really where we wanted to start the conversation.
Although,
when you look at what happened,
at what point do we say, you can step out of your house with your AR-15 because there's a tyrannical government in place?
well, a great example. A great example. We have governments that are lifting up criminals. When you look at Portland, Seattle, who would think the Midwest, right, would have this kind of shit? You would think the Midwest was more provincial. It's not.
Although, what's your AR-15 going to do against a Black Hawk helicopter? That's my point. When we talk like that, it's like
nothing.
We're really past the point of no return as far as like being able to protect ourselves from that.
Didn't WikiLeaks? Remember the first thing WikiLeaks let loose was military Black Hawks that had come down into an area where there were civilians with little guns, and it killed 20 guys. Remember that video? That was the first thing. It was horrific. We couldn't believe it. Wow. And it was such an efficient killing machine, the Black Hawk. But the thing is, here's the thing. Here's the bigger issue. I think it steps outside the conversation that everybody's having. Gun control. I don't think it has anything to do with gun control. What I think is going on, we have a component of our government that's lifting up criminals. They're allowing these. Look at what's going on in San Francisco, all the major high-end department stores. Neiman Marcus. The people are just walking in and loading shit up.
I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that.
We're in a lawless society. We don't have a federal government that's willing to intervene. And at the local level, cops are not allowed, police officers are not allowed to do their job. I think we had this on another podcast. We talked about, I don't even know what to think of that.
Maybe they're going to let all the violence surge so that way they can do the absolute, surveillance Big Brother state. They can just say, hey, you assholes are out of control. Right. So, and that was what I was thinking when everybody was crying about how COVID is the excuse to kind of just lock everything down. And I was saying, well, technically, the government can just roll down the streets with tanks and say, don't come out of your house. They don't really need an excuse to lock us down. They could do it tomorrow. Turn the municipal water supplies off. I mean, it wouldn't be hard.
No, they could do it.
Right. Whack our Wi-Fi, shut our Wi-Fi off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my mind, quite honestly, the way I look at this, before we get to what happened with this kid, because there's a certain philosophy, I think, before we get there, and there's politics, and there's just a certain mindset. And having gone down the rabbit hole probably the second or third time in my life with this stuff, and realizing, having been exposed, been in Washington, been in Los Angeles, been in New York, been part of the entertainment industry, saw a lot of stuff, ignored it, didn't pay attention to it, didn't get involved in it. I had, 3 kids, was married happily, and it just wasn't for me. Had the opportunity to do that. But what we know today is that...
thank you for not selling your soul to the devil.
Well, I mean, that's what it comes down to, That's what it really comes down to. The elites plan on, they want to ensure that society and no random human reaches the maximum potential of their self. That's what they're really trying to do. They're trying to eliminate the competition, okay? And this Kyle Rittenhouse thing, I think, is a big part of that, in that here's a kid who... with no training whatsoever. He is a natural born assassin killer. I mean, for all intended purposes, for when you look at what occurred, this kid goes down into one of the most violent situations that ever occurred in this country, where everybody's lugging around a gun. He is chased by Oh God, what's the guy's name? Joseph Rosenbaum. It's been so long. We're supposed to do this podcast a while ago. Joseph Rosenbaum, and what does he end up being? Right here. I can't even read this. Here's a guy who has 11 accounts of child molestation. He has 11 accounts of pedophile accounts of child molestation, inappropriate sexual activity around children, including anal rape, oral sex. The victims were severe Rosenbaum's victims. There were 5 boys, and the boys were between the ages of 9 and 11. I could go on reading this, and I was going to at one point, and I've decided I don't want to, because I think it's becoming more and more obvious, the shit that's going on out there. But here's the thing that bothers me about this Joseph Rosenbaum. So this kid, let's just go back to Kyle Rittenhouse. He's down on the street. This Rosenbaum, who just came out of a nut house, they end up in a confrontation in the beginning, and an hour and a half later, they're back in a confrontation. This Rosenbaum ends up chasing him down the street. While he's being chased, a few gunshots go off. He's got a bag or something. He had a chain. Who knows what it was? This kid turns around. This guy's coming at him. 17-year-old kid. I would have just taken the butt of my rifle and stuffed it down his throat. But, when you're in that situation and there's a mob and they're all screaming at you, kill him, kill him, kill him. And it really happened afterwards. This kid turns around and shoots him. I wish I could say I'm so upset about it. The thing that bothered me, Mark Ruffalo, the guy who played the Hulk in the Marvel version of the Hulk, referred to him as JoJo, his buddy, like he was some kind of martyr that was killed for a cause. A lot of people ran to this pedophile's defense, and it goes back to what we know about the whole pedophile thing. Also, I'll add this just to pile on conspiracy. When you look at what's occurred in all these major cities, a lot of the people that have been arrested were all child molestation cases, or they've had, done violations. And what I think of when I hear this stuff, and I know this is going to be a little crazy, is the MK Ultra thing. I think they're all programmed to go out and create a chaotic situation. I was watching a hearings that occurred that no one knows occurred. They leaked them. I'm going to try and get my hands on them to see if we could use them. But during the Clinton administration, 2 women went up and explained the MK Ultra program. This is 1975. They discovered it. It's still been going on, and they got into great detail about how they recruit it. And it is such a unbelievable thing. One of the women that were there said they expected that there was 1 million people that were affected by the MK Ultra program. Wow. So if you don't know what the MK Ultra program is, just to kind of a thumbnail sketch, it was a program that the CIA was in. And what they did is they recruited generational pedophiles that occurred through generations of families. And they were the easiest to brainwash, especially their children. And the military would literally buy their children. They would pay for them, and then they would put them through the process of what they call disassociation. Because once you got a human being to disassociation, you can control who they are. So just as a side note, in this crazy shit we're going through in this world today, that kind of looks like this whole chaotic mess. They're all pedophiles involved in this.
And
which brings us to the most...
Wasn't like Charlie Manson part of...
Yeah, Manson, the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, all these guys were all involved in it. So...
And if it's not that, it could also be... I've heard other theorizing that it could be like Chinese or Russian...
Programming
to sow dissent amongst ourselves, in the U.S.
Yeah, well, hey, at this point, I believe, I believe just about anything. But what we do know is Kyle Rittenhouse is on the street. This kid comes after him. This Joseph Rosenbaum, he shoots him, kills him. He goes back to help him, and then he realizes the mob is after him. Kill him, cranium, they call it cranium, whatever that means, crush his head, this crazy street shit. But anyway, so Kyle Rittenhouse, when he went through some shit. When you hear about him, he comes from an extremely poor family. His dad was a machine operator. His mom worked in healthcare. At one point, they were almost homeless. I mean, this kid has come from a real, not privilege at all. I think that's another reason that they do not want, my opinion, it's okay. They don't want a level playing field. And what they don't want is they do not want you or I to feel safe protecting ourselves, where we're completely surrendered to the government protecting us, which we know that they do it. They're not going to be able to do that. Not at the federal level, but I think they want that. We all know we released a podcast today on mind prison. And we're more and more, we're imprisoned in our minds where we're thinking, oh, we can't say something. The next thing is we can't do something to defend ourselves. Our family we'd have to be submissive to the criminal, allow ourselves to, they do not want us, allow the criminal to do whatever they want to us and they get justice in the court system, although they're letting these guys go on $1,000 bail. Allow the Christmas parade disaster that occurred in Wisconsin with I think it was Darrell Brooks. No, that wasn't Darrell Brooks, was it?
Oh, you mean the Thanksgiving parade? That recent?
Yes.
The guy driving the car hitting.
Yeah,
people?
Darrell Brooks was the guy. Darrell Brooks was the guy's name who ran everybody over, killed a bunch of people, injured 40 people, killed and injured 40 people. Black Lives Matter guy. Then of course he's mentally ill. Of course, today I saw feels like he's being demonized. Jeez, that's awful that we're doing that. The world's gone mad, and the press is latching onto it, going, "Oh yeah, we're demonizing this guy. We should." It's all crazy. But so Rittenhouse goes through this whole thing. He gets. The next thing that happens to him, he's in the street, he's running down the street, he gets knocked down or he falls down, spins around. I don't know how it occurred. In between, there were two attacks. One was a jumper who we never saw anything about, another criminal though, huge criminal record. He jumped up and kicked him somehow while he was laying on the ground. He did not shoot him and kill him though. The next attack was, in between all this, was a skateboarder who came over, and I know, you're a skateboarder and everything, but just to let you know, it's no longer safe to try and kill someone with a skateboard because you could get shot.
Not.
So
deadly weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, who cares? But he ends up, this guy hits him in the back of the neck or head with the skateboard, and then he's going to beat his brains in with it. He shoots him and kills him. The most interesting part was the last guy who lied the next day on MSNBC and CNN. But while he was on trial, yes, I had my pistol out. Yes, he went through the whole thing. I was holding it toward his head. The thing is, this kid just was maybe divine intervention. I don't know, but he shot the guy, almost shot his arm off. He had a pistol, he was going to shoot him in the head. He shot him before he got shot in the head. So when you look at all of the events around it, this Kyle Rittenhouse really, it was totally self-defense. Oh, he shouldn't have been there. Okay, yeah, I get all that bullshit. I think about the things I did when I was 17. There's a lot of places I shouldn't have been. But he was trying to help these two guys save their businesses. They'd already burnt down one of their buildings and some other occurrence. 40 buildings were burned down in a city, all mostly businesses. You're a self-employed business person. I'm a self-employed. We know how hard we work. And just to have somebody come along and burn it. And guess who was the only person arrested, held on bail in that city during this whole thing? Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, it is we are in such a bizarro place that I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what's up, what's down, and then when he gets there... Yeah, when he gets there, the attorney he gets caught up with these attorneys. They end up taking him and exploit him as far as the white supremacist. That's where this whole thing about his white supremacy comes out. He fires that attorney. They took like $1 million out of him. I mean, you're talking about somebody who had,
guy, right?
yeah, Lynn Wood. I mean, who's just, I have never had any good use for Lynn Wood. But, you know, at the end of the day, it really, yeah, he is. And when you heard this kid, I saw the interview with Tucker Carlson, and I know, oh my God, Tucker, you know, everybody thinks he's a demon. I just think it's an interesting thing, and I mean, an interesting thing. I think there's more to it than it's just it's someone defending himself. I really think that we're in a lawless society. It's unchecked throughout the United States, and we're supposed to be able to protect ourselves. But I think along with what we can't say, this mind prison they put us in, where we know we can't speak our minds, we can't say what we feel, we can't. The other thing that they don't want us to do is do anything to protect ourselves. They want us just to be these passive creatures that herd off to get shots of the vaccine, then herd off here, and we're submissive to the evils of the world, and we're just led off to slaughterhouse situations where when they riot in a city.
Yeah, I'm still scared of, you know, did you hear about the Oxford school shooting? I don't know how many people. That was yesterday.
Oh, 3 or 4 people, were shot.
Yeah.
I still think there's something.
I think I'm just scared of the, you know, well, I see your point. I'm just scared of, I don't want to live in a vigilante society. I believe in the Second Amendment. I want to carry arms myself just because I'm paranoid now wherever I go.
There you go.
It's a catch-22, isn't it? But I definitely don't want prepubescent kids running around armed to the hilt, because I'd like to think I have a little more discernment on whether I should, you know, use a firearm or not. Then, I mean, we're both dads. We both know what our kids are like at 15, 16, 17. So it's a tough one. I'll give you that.
We were running around with guns when we were 12, 13, 14, 15. We weren't shooting anybody.
Right.
Except BB guns.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe you shot your brother or something with a BB gun. And, you know.
Right. Just to see if it hurt, which it did.
Right.
But we were not shooting guns. We weren't out there trying to walk into our school. So there's an issue that it's not about gun control. There's an issue with mental health. I think this comes down to mental health.
Yeah.
And we don't do a good job with it. I mean, go to Seattle, Washington. I was out there 2 years ago. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, we don't do well in far as mental health is concerned. And I can't remember what year they had done that, where they basically just took all these mental wards in hospitals and just shut them down in the 70s. And then I think that was really a major issue. The other thing we don't do, affluent families don't do, is admit that their children may have something wrong with them.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's really...
Even though all the kids shrinks nowadays, like they didn't have that when you and I were little, like every kid didn't see a shrink. Now you can't meet a parent who doesn't have each kid in therapy, you know? And it doesn't seem to
my
be
mother
doing
was
much,
like...
you know?
Irish mother. She's like, don't be a candy ass. You know,
right,
don't cry, don't be a candy ass.
Yeah, suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up, walk it off. You know, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, that was a period of time. But there's just this. I feel bad for this kid. Should he have been down there with a rifle? Probably not. But I go back to
when you were back on those European gun laws, you notice that what went way up. All their knife attacks, right? Everybody in Europe, they stab each other. So it's like you take away the guns, they use knives. Maybe the point is they can't kill as many people with knives, but they're still violent.
I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember the They were ISIS members or proclaimed they were ISIS members. They were in the street in London. They were actually in a neighborhood that I was in when I was over there a few times. And I had done some work for J.K. Rowling's publicist, and he lived in a neighborhood. He had assembled all these houses, but it was in a predominantly Arab neighborhood. It was very interesting. That's why I couldn't walk. They had to walk me up to the corner and all this stuff because of that. It was just, it was shortly
Jewish looking.
too Jewish looking and too American. It was an oxymoron of a sort. But so they walked me up there. But what I was going to say is, in that neighborhood, they had captured a military guy. They knew he was a military guy and chopped his head off. That happened like a couple of times. Yeah, that happened a couple of times over there. Yeah. I remember that. So, violence is violence. I don't think you're going to avoid it. I think it's part of being aware, making sure you know where you're at when you're there. I just don't know that gun control is the answer. People use cars. This guy used a car, killed 7 or 8 people and injured 40 people. Some of those people are injured at a point where they'll never be the same again. I just think and we're in an environment. You can't have a lawless environment. We're in a lawless environment. Look at what's going on in our major cities. New York. You know where it isn't occurring now? This is just something I know, oh my God, everybody's going to go, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Florida, Miami. Now, I was living in Miami last year, in between both here, New York and Miami. And DeSantis basically put together a executive order, that said, hey, if you're going to mess with somebody's business, they can shoot you and kill you. There's no protest going on in Florida anywhere. I think Texas has a similar, you can carry a gun there, and they're like, if you're going to mess with somebody's business, be prepared. Guess what? There's something about two opposing factors that lean against one another. That's what the Cold War was about. That's why there was never a nuclear war. Two powers that lean against one another that keeps everything in check. So if you got the lawless and then you got the law-abiding saying, okay, if you do this, I'm going to shoot you in the face, that could work. I mean, I would be like, just as a person with conscience, I know that, people who are law-abiding people, I don't want to mess with the cops. I don't want to deal. I have dealt with the police officers in my life. I don't want to do that. But I think that's a major part of, there's no fear, on lawless people. The only people that are in fear are people who are law-abiding people, and they're not fearful of cops. They're fearful of the lawless people that are raping, murdering, stealing, robbing. It wasn't that long ago, a year ago in New York, people were being raped on subways in broad daylight. Yeah. I mean, and you got Comrade de Blasio down there. And talk about a just puny leader, just a complete puny leader, out of his mind. Look at New York. New York's a mess. I mean, Brooklyn is not in bad shape, but New York is a goddamn mess. All of our major cities are. Nobody's going to major cities. You go to Los Angeles today, it's a tent city. Yeah. It's everything's out of control. At the end of the day, I don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse, it was a good idea for him to be there, but 17-year-old kids don't make good decisions. That's why they're in accidents. That's why they drink and drive. That's why they do drugs and drive. That's why they jump off buildings thinking they're not going to be harmed in any way. So I think he was down there. I think his intentions were good ones. And I think that he was defending himself. And
do you think you think there should have been any consequence to the
well, that was my fear. Here was what I was sitting here thinking.
Even if you called it, because even if you hit somebody with a car by accident, it's involuntary manslaughter. How do you feel about the judgment?
That was my concern. I was really concerned because the jury took a long time. And I was worried that the jury, if I am, this is what we can't have. This is what worries me. What I can't have in my life is someone breaks in through my door, comes into my house, say when I had a wife and kids, right? When they were all young kids and everything, they come into my house and they're going to do harm. I can't be worried about, I can't have that second thought like, oh, geez, if I shoot this guy who's about to rape my daughter or my wife, geez, I don't know, I could end up in prison. Boy, you can't have that going on in your head. You got to like, okay, I'm just going to shoot this son of a bitch. And, bad luck for him that I had a gun. Right. I think the minute we start putting those things where, oh, well, and that was my concern. I was concerned the jury's going to come back and say, well, we have to punish him for something because he killed 3 people. Well, they were 3 animals, quite honestly. They were of no, I hate to say this because you're not supposed to, but, because I sound like a vigilante, but the reality is these 3 people were, I'm sure they were on drugs. I mean, because why would you go after a guy with that laying on his back with a gun when you see him just kill 2 people? This last guy that went after him with his pistol, you have to be out of your mind. I just think that I really do. Maybe it was divine intervention that this kid got through this. I don't have any idea, but he didn't look like a 17-year-old kid. He looked like a fucking Navy SEAL out there. You know what I mean? It was really remarkable. So who knows? And then hearing him interviewed, he's no dummy. And, now he was going, I think, to Arizona State. They're like, no, we don't want you to come back. Everybody, all these kids that silver spoon kids, entitled kids, saying to him, no, we don't want you at our university. Minority of kids doing that, but it's always those outspoken minorities.
Oh, he'll be fine. He'll be a multimillionaire with book contracts and a movie.
Well, I think he's going to, who was the kid that, remember the kid with the Indian and the news reported it all wrong, CNN and all those guys, and said he was a white supremacist, put this kid through everything, and he ended up winning $350 million. He's still got 4 more. He's going to end up being a billionaire suing media companies. Wow. That kid has gotten hold of Rittenhouse, and Rittenhouse has said he's got the best attorneys you can imagine. It's going after all the press for saying all this shit about him. So I hope he just takes some fair. I don't know how these media companies are surviving. I think we talked about this too. New York Times. I mean, nobody reads the New York Times anymore. But Washington Post, nobody's reading newspapers anymore. So, people are, I think, onto a lot of this stuff. They know it's all rigged. They know that they're not getting the truth. But I got to be honest. I watch CNN and I watch all of the news programs. I'm not a Fox. Just for the record, for people who listen to this, I am not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. You are not either, right?
I'm not. Yeah, that's right. I'm not.
Yeah, you're neither one of those. I just am practical about my politics. I want to be protected. I want to feel safe. I want my family to be safe. I want to live in a country where I feel safe. I think that's the biggest priority of our government, is to make sure we live in a safe place where we can go out and practice commerce, go out and create living without fear of having it taken away by criminals. I think that's one of the biggest parts of, whether it's a criminal with a gun or a criminal who is a attorney who is going to fuck you over in a deal on a contract, because they're out there too. Right. So I think, not talking bad about attorneys, but who gives a shit about those guys? But anyway, right. Who needs what was it? Shakespeare killed the attorneys first. Oh, don't mean that metaphor. I don't want to be going out doing anything, but I think that, I think that's the biggest part of government. I lean more toward the libertarian side of things, but I also know that's pretty unrealistic. We're not going to get rid of the Federal Reserve, and some of the things that I actually have spoken at libertarian events, and they're always young kids, and I'm like, listen, all the things you want, forget about it. I would love to get rid of the Federal Reserve, because it's not even owned by the U.S. government. It's owned by the Rothschilds, and we know the whole story on the Federal Reserve. People don't know that. They think the government's doing this, and it's like, no. They're just selling money to the government and charging them interest, and no one really understands how that Federal Reserve works. But anyway, so that's kind of it. I just think we're, we're in a very strange time, very strange place.
We really are.
I just don't
choose your truth, right?
Yeah, you do. And in doing what we're doing and the research we have done, and we do a lot of research. I tell this to people, they're interested in the podcast and things. When we go in and do the research and you start talking to like the occult watchers and some of these ex-federal agents, and I don't even know how federal agents, the good federal agents, that people don't realize there's a good and bad inside federal law enforcement. Like CIA, There's the good guys and the bad guys, and they work together, but they're good guys and bad guys. People don't realize that, but I just don't know how they get along in life. You know what I mean? I don't know how they
sleep at night.
I don't know. I don't know how you sleep at night. But what ends up happening when we hear these stories and they say, here's a story, here's a person you should talk to. It's just scary shit. I was saying I am not the same person I was 6 or 7 months ago.
No, it's unbelievable.
And I kind of knew this. Yeah. And you kind of know this shit's out there. But then you realize that you only knew a little bit of it. And as you interview more people,
and
like
some weirder and more unbelievable.
Yeah. And we've got more and more strange stuff happening in December interviews. We're starting to get into those interviews we said we'd push off for the holidays, because have a holly jolly Christmas. We want to make sure we get out there for Hanukkah and Christmas. We want to get really scary shit out there, right? So, but they can always take, they can always go to gnomewellness.com and get a CBD to manage their anxiety.
Exactly.
Little plug.
Or you can sniff candles like me. But the CBD.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, yep.
That's beautiful. That is such a beautiful thing. But anyway, with that said, I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse, I think I think it's good. I think it was a win for the country, although there's a lot of people don't believe that. And the unfortunate part is I think a lot of people are in a trance. And I think part of it's been this COVID thing, because fear is a big thing, right? People are willing to give up a lot of freedom for the false feeling of protection and security. And unfortunately, I've never bought into a lot of this stuff. And but we know that not everybody can do that. I mean, there's a lot of people who just can't deal with it. And interestingly enough, I was watching our good friend Alex Jones. And he has even gotten to a point in his life where he says, I just don't think I can keep doing this.
Right.
He really is. He's like, I don't think I can keep dealing with this shit and dealing with society and dealing with how beat up he gets by bringing this stuff forward. And you and I have talked about this. I always thought he was crazy. I don't think he's crazy one bit. I mean, he's done some stupid things, probably didn't do the checking into it like he should have. But there's far more he's done that has been on the money. And we'll have to see. This Ghislaine Maxwell trial is going to be a real test for our judicial system.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy that James Comey's daughter is the lead prosecutor.
Yeah.
Because we all know about James Comey.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that. And he's a dirty, filthy FBI agent. We don't know how great the FBI is, right? Everybody knows now. Right? Just real quick in closing, let's just for 1 minute. All of the Olympic girls were going to the FBI saying, "Hey, this doctor's been molesting us and touching us inappropriately for 18 years."
Yeah.
Hundreds of
cases, right?
Hundreds of cases, and they ignored it.
Right.
Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein. These people were going to the FBI saying, hey, he's bringing us to islands, doing this and this. They ignored it. You could go on and on and on about the fuck-ups that the FBI, the bomber in Boston, the FBI were onto those guys, and they just let it go. They let it go. I always get a kick about field agents. You hear it on Sean Hannity. Oh, the field agent, my brother's a FBI field agent. They're corrupt. They're all corrupt. It doesn't stop like here. It goes once an organization's corrupt, it goes down through the organization, And so I think we've got a lot of that, unfortunately. All of this sex trafficking is being overlooked by the FBI and U.S. Marshals, and we'll get into that. We've got some stuff coming up on that. So we've got some interesting stuff coming up on that. But anyway, well, it's the holidays. Happy holiday with all the good news.
Sounds good, buddy. Another good episode.
Yeah. And if I could just realize. I laughed, I cried, and I came to realization. Well, that's it for tonight's episode. Thanks for watching us at episode 6 of Sleeping Man. You can catch all of our stuff on YouTube, the video. You can catch audio and video on Podbean. You can catch it on Spotify, and you can catch it on Apple. Please follow us. Please support the podcast. We're going to get better and better. And thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. With that, that's Greg Kerber saying, see you next time. YagiBox.com